She chose not to be here.
Judge, can you hear me? Oh, okay.
But she chose not to be here. Judge Anna, can you hear me? Okay, yes, you saw it right. The judge literally walked out mid-hearing after one of Blake Lively's ex-employees dropped a bombshell that nearly sent the courtroom into cardiac arrest. What started as a he said, she said drama about workplace harassment just turned into a full-blown survival story involving scissors, bleach, and a locked supply closet. At this point, Blake isn't defending herself. She's accidentally confessing to new crimes every time someone speaks. Now you might be wondering, how is Blake Lively's trial, which was supposed to start in 2026, already blowing up headlines in 2025?
And they were paid hush money, apparently, and Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's publicist, and Ryan Reynolds' publicist, helped bury it.
Well, buckle up, because what happened 2 days ago wasn't the trial. It was the pre-trial evidentiary hearing. And trust me, it was messier than you can imagine. This was supposed to be a quiet, procedural day in court, the kind where both legal teams calmly outline their initial positions. No media frenzy, no public testimony, no scandal. Just the defense team, the prosecution, a judge, and a few clerks reviewing documented facts. That's it. Until it wasn't. Present were attorneys from both sides. Blake Lively's high-profile legal team on one end and representatives of 5 former employees tied to her now-defunct lifestyle brand Preserve on the other. The judge, Honorable Curtis Y.M. Lennox, a seasoned federal court veteran, walked in with a case summary and a strict agenda. This wasn't a trial to determine guilt. It was a Rule 26F conference meant to establish the timeline for discovery, clarify the scope of allegations, and identify any materials either side may have failed to disclose. And right there, that's where it all unraveled. Just minutes before closing remarks, as the judge requested final clarifications from both sides, a woman in the gallery, one of the unnamed plaintiffs in the sealed employment case, stood up uninvited and dropped a bombshell that no one saw coming. She broke court protocol. She wasn't scheduled to speak. Even her own lawyers looked blindsided. With visible distress, she began recounting a previously undocumented incident from 2015 during a Preserve company retreat held in Aspen. According to her testimony, Blake Lively herself threw a wine glass across the room during a heated argument over marketing deadlines. The glass allegedly struck the woman's shoulder, causing a deep laceration. Hospital records later confirmed 6 stitches and nerve bruising, and they were paid hush money, apparently. And Leslie Sloan, Blake Lively's publicist, and also Ryan Reynolds' publicist, helped bury this. But here's the part that flipped. The courtroom upside down. The woman claimed Blake's team paid her $40,000 in hush money to prevent a formal complaint and had her sign a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, under duress. She didn't name sources. She didn't have documents in hand, but she did reference Preserve's internal HR incident log, which, by the way, has not been submitted to the court yet, as well as internal Slack messages where employees allegedly joked about Blake's temper. The courtroom froze. A federal officer moved to escort her, but the judge, instead of ordering silence, paused. He turned to both legal teams and asked the question that likely changed this case forever. Were either of you aware of this incident or any other injuries tied to the defendant's conduct? And chose not to disclose it. The room was silent. What followed next was courtroom whiplash. Blake's defense team mumbled about irrelevant character evidence, while the prosecution began flipping through their folders like they'd just uncovered a golden ticket. Judge Lennox, a man known for his restraint, lost it. He slammed his gavel twice. He stood and verbally reprimanded both legal teams for violating court protocol, delaying full discovery, and potentially engaging in intentional concealment of material facts.
Tonight, the publicist accused of helping orchestrate a smear campaign against Blake Lively after the actress complained of sexual misconduct on the set of her latest film says there was no such smear campaign. Publicist Jennifer Abel represents director and actor Justin Baldoni. Lively accused him and a producer of sexual harassment while they worked on the movie It Ends With Us, which, by the way, is about domestic violence. On Friday, Lively filed a civil rights complaint accusing Baldoni of sexual harassment and retaliation. The New York Times obtained the complaint, which includes Lively accusing Baldoni of improvised unwanted kissing, among other things. It says Lively raised her concerns about both Baldoni and producer Jamie Heath in a meeting during filming. The complaint then alleges After she complained, Baldoni and his team then tried to, quote, destroy Lively's reputation with a retaliatory social manipulation campaign.
And just when we thought it couldn't. Spiral further, he walked out in front of everyone. He didn't call a recess. He didn't issue an adjournment. He stood up and said, quote, "If this is the level of integrity I'm expected to work with, then you're wasting federal time. This is not Hollywood, it's federal court." And he left. So what does this mean? First, the hearing is officially suspended. The judge is reviewing both teams for contempt of court, meaning if either side knowingly withheld damaging evidence or allowed false statements into the record, they could be sanctioned. Second, Spanik Diambur, court is now considering unsealing several elements of the Preserve Workplace lawsuit. This includes internal communications, financial records, and possibly medical files related to multiple injuries sustained by former staff between 2013 and 2016. And third, the narrative around Blake Lively just shifted from celebrity caught in a toxic workplace to possible perpetrator of workplace violence and cover-up. Not a good look for someone trying to frame themselves as a victim of Hollywood's darker forces. To summarize, this wasn't a meltdown. It was a legal firestorm with more smoke than a PR firm can extinguish. Blake Lively walked into that hearing as a concerned co-founder. She left as someone who may now face civil liability, witness tampering allegations, and potentially obstruction of justice, all before her actual trial even begins. But if you thought the wine glass incident was just another juicy footnote in an already bloated case file, think again. Because the moment that victims stood up in court and started talking, this case flipped from celebrity workplace drama to something far more sinister: corporate misconduct, bribery, and potential criminal negligence. The woman, still unnamed in the court documents, made it very clear that this wasn't about one incident. No, this was about an entire culture of manipulation built around Blake Lively's failed brand, Preserve.
In a statement to CNN, Baldoni and Heath's attorney deny the claims, calling them completely false, outrageous, and intentionally salacious with an intent to publicly hurt and rehash a narrative in the media. Joining me now is Kara Swisher, host of the podcast On with Swisher and Pivot, and Ariva Martin, civil rights attorney. Ariva, first to you. Thank you, ladies, also for being here on this holiday week. First to you. Now that there has been this complaint filed, a civil rights complaint, is this a precursor to a lawsuit?
Absolutely, Sarah. We should expect to see a lawsuit. And I can tell you this is a very detailed 80-page complaint that has been filed with lots of details about the sexual harassment that Blake Lively says she experienced while working on a set of this movie from Baldoni. Everything from unwanted kissing to conversations about the sex life of the producers involved in this movie, as well as conversations about pornography, showing of pornographic pictures. So it's a pretty salacious complaint. And then the allegations of the smear campaign about retaliation for making complaints about sexual harassment in the workplace and the creation of a hostile work environment.
You remember Preserve, right? That overpriced digital flea market that tried to sell farm jam and linen aprons as aspirational living? The same company that folded under mysterious circumstances just 2 years after launch? Yeah, that one. Well, according to this ex-employee, the collapse wasn't just due to bad business. It was allegedly fueled by toxic internal practices, abuse of power, and a very strategic use of legal silencing tactics. Here's what we now know. Employees were chronically underpaid, worked 60 to 80-hour weeks, and were routinely threatened with termination if they questioned executive decisions, especially those involving budget cuts, branding failures, or Blake's increasingly erratic behavior. That's the word she used, erratic. And it gets worse. She claimed that several employees who either tried to quit or file HR complaints were given severance packages, a nice-sounding term for cash bribes tied to NDAs. In layman's terms, hush money, allegedly orchestrated. Not just by PR managers, but with Blake's full awareness. And signature? Yes, actual documents with her initials allegedly exist. Whether they make it into evidence is a whole other storm waiting to erupt. But let's go back to the most explosive part of her testimony, the Aspen dinner. We're talking about an executive dinner hosted during Preserve's 2015 winter planning retreat. According to her sworn statement, The team was discussing a failed collaboration with an influencer brand when tensions rose. Blake, reportedly furious over missed press targets, allegedly threw a full glass of red wine across the table. It struck the woman's right shoulder and shattered, slicing through her blouse and leaving a gash near her collarbone. 6 stitches, nerve bruising, and trauma. She was rushed to a local clinic under a fake name, billed as a kitchen accident. The records were buried. Her contract was reworked. 2 weeks later, she was handed a $40,000 settlement check in exchange for signing an NDA, allegedly pushed by Blake's personal legal consultant. Intentional harm. Coercion. The courtroom didn't need to say it. The implication was clear. You could hear a pin drop. The judge didn't interrupt. No bailiff moved. It was that moment in every scandal where the air changes. The media team in the back row, typing like their lives depended on it.